Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Backlog Banter. My name is Tucker Hazel, and today I am joined by this goofy goober. Look at him. Look at him. It's Aiden Buhner. And today
Wow.
we're here to talk about Nintendo's 2024, all the games therein, the vibes of the entire year, what we thought about it, and how it kind of seems to be the end cap to the Switch
Yeah.
generation. We'll be giving them kind of a report card, just generally talking about our feelings. But Abram, we played and listened to a lot of Nintendo goodness this year, and I'm excited to talk to you about everything that goes
Yeah.
into what made this year like. It's gonna be really interesting to talk about.
I agree. I agree. It'd be interesting to talk about. It'll also be interesting to share what we played on Switch this year
Oh
because
yeah,
we
I forgot to
got
mention that.
our years in reviews,
Mm-hmm.
obviously from Nintendo, our own report card as to how well
Sure.
we did on
Yeah,
Nintendo
sure.
Switch this year. So we'll talk about that a little bit too.
What if they
But we'll talk
graded you?
about
That'd be really interesting.
that would be interesting. I
First
would
one to get on
probably
that, like Spotify or Xbox or PlayStation or whatever, they're really gonna have a big bump in like general conversation because people are gonna be like comparing
yeah.
themselves to others, which they're already doing. But like this will be like official. Like PlayStation thinks I am a C tier student.
I compare Spotify Wrapped with my friends and stuff, and I and they in return are making judgments based on taste.
Yeah,
But what you're totally right. We need somebody to arbitrate from a higher level,
absolutely, absolutely.
and it should be Nintendo. And if they were to do it, I would get an A. I think.
Maybe, maybe. What if they judged you on taste? What if it was a report card as a breakdown and one of them was taste? You get to see what Nintendo
Well,
thought
here's the
of your
thing.
taste.
My taste is primarily the things they want to sell to me, so I
That's
think
a
I would
good
get an
point.
A in the taste
That's a
category from
good point.
Nintendo. But Tucker, I would like us to start in a stupid way,
All right,
okay?
frankly, that's how all our videos started.
I want you to describe your feelings on Nintendo's 2024 in one single adjective.
Oh shit. Okay. Uh, that's like a person, place, or thing, right?
That's it.
No. No.
I have one, and just so you know,
Okay.
just to make you feel better, I didn't think of asking you this ahead of time, so I just came up with this adjective
Yeah.
on the
Okay. Okay.
fly.
Okay. Well, do
Okay?
do yours and
My
I'll think of mine.
my adjective is enigmatic.
Ooh. I get. Yeah, that's an adjective. Yeah. No, that's pretty good. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking along those lines. I think the first thing that came to mind was kooky. 'Cause
Okay.
I would say this
Yeah.
is a kooky year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly paced, but still relatively consistent in terms of lineup. Their communication was all over the place in terms of cadences of directs, types of directs. These guys were inventing new types of directs in a lab over the course of
They were.
2024. We've had over 10 years of Nintendo Directs, and they're still like, we can find new ways to like make something weird happen.
Yeah. It was it was an interesting year.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to get into it in a more particular way. I am not especially interested to talk about Switch 2 in this video,
No,
unless
me
you have
neither.
much to say about it.
The only
Uh,
thing to say is that
yeah,
painted this year in a really weird light. This is going to be a year
right.
that's looked back on in an awkward way of the year that everyone was just waiting. And it put a lot of pressure on the releases
It
and
did.
their announcements and their communication. And every time there was an investors briefing and a this is for Akawa, like that was a big part of this year. But I agree, I'm not interested in like projecting or thinking about the future necessarily.
Yeah, I mean
Ever.
it's a yeah, ever. I don't even know what I'm gonna say in 30 seconds from now.
No, neither do I. What if I just started spouting just heinous shit? It's possible.
Well, actually, our current audience might like that.
Hey.
But um, I- obviously, the shadow of Switch 2 has loomed large over 2024,
Yeah.
and it's not that I think that that is unfair because
Mhm.
I think that that is necessarily going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I it happened quite obviously in 2016 when
Mhm.
NX
Mhm.
was dominant.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising to me that the actual games Nintendo released this year, the decisions they made outside of the games, sort of got short shrift in comparison, speaking from what the community is interested in comparison to various Switch 2 leaks and rumors. And I
Yeah.
think that that's completely understandable, but I also think that that focus detracted from what I think is a very interesting conversation about a year for Nintendo, which I think is in many ways consequential,
Hmm.
even if
Hmm.
the individual games with I would say only rare exception, were not consequential.
Yeah.
I think we saw them make a lot of decisions outside of games that were quite important. I
Yeah.
think the people they brought into the fold to make the games that did release this year are very important.
Definitely.
And so I'm excited to have this sort of deeper level conversation about what 2024 means for Nintendo moving forward, divorced from when the next system is releasing,
Yeah.
while also having the space to talk about what games they did release
Sure.
and,
Yeah.
how they struck us.
Yeah.
So,
And
where do you want to
you and
start
I are in
here?
a very interesting position to be able to talk about this
Yeah.
because we are the perfect type of Nintendo jackasses. I'm not going to say fans, I'm going to say jackasses that
That's fair
are
enough.
up the ass of the weirder parts of their catalog. And we were excited and compelled by following the Emio news. And the biggest reaction that a game got out of us this year might have been Endless Ocean Luminous. Like,
Yeah.
there was a lot of things this year that we're the perfect people to talk about because frankly not many other people are compelled by a lot of the games
Yeah.
they put out this year, but we played between the two of us. I think we played basically every single game except for I don't think either of us played Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Oh, and Fitness Boxing 3 is now out. Neither of us has played that. But we've played
Yeah.
basically everything between the two of us, and we have thoughts on all of them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I just did a quick count. Nintendo did publish at retail 12 games this year.
Yeah.
And I think that
Did they
that's
publish
one of
any
the
digital games this year? I don't think so. I think I would have them on there.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they did.
Which might be the first time
Um
that we've gone a year without one in the Switch era.
and that's an interesting point.
I think
It
it's probably
might
true.
be,
Yeah.
except for maybe 2017.
Snipper clips. Well, I guess then that did get a physical
Oh,
later down the line. Flip
yeah.
Wars.
Well, it's you're right. You're right. You're right. You're right. I think I think this lineup speaks to what you were saying, which is you have to really be dialed into an interest in Nintendo history,
Yeah.
and the wider Nintendo culture to care about, in my view, any of the releases Nintendo put out this year, with the exceptions of Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom and Mario Party Jamboree.
Absolutely.
Um, and that's an interesting place to be in because I don't feel like Nintendo's catalog has been in that position for any of the Switch years.
Yeah, no. And I think you could also probably make that argument for a lot of the Wii U years where even if the IP weren't, or the games weren't necessarily fan favorites, they were still operating largely in IP that people were familiar with. This year we were getting a lot of things that people aren't familiar with.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously I, partially as a bit, but partially as an illustration of my deep-seated and officially diagnosed mental illness, was very worried about the number of Mario games coming out. Standing in December looking backwards, what's intriguing is that, yes, there was a lot of Mario Universe software. However, there were also a myriad of IP revivals that are so insanely niche
Yeah.
that evidently Nintendo is not interested in moving its chips solely towards the biggest IP as it becomes a more mainstream transmedia
yeah.
company. And so I think we ought to dive into some of these.
Sure.
I'm curious for you what the Nintendo game of the year is in your mind. The one that really stands out to you. And take that how you will, whether it's one you enjoyed playing the most or the one that compels you the most from the lineup.
I'm going to say the one that most exemplifies this year.
That's fair, yeah.
Which
sure.
I think is either Emio or NES World Championships.
I would say it's Emio.
Yeah,
I would say it's Emio.
Emio is where my brain first went with that because that is a fascinating IP revival. It is a diversification of published genre on the system. Technically not because they'd had the other Famicom games on Switch, but you understand what I'm saying. Which I think a lot of this year was geared towards of trying out different genres that they hadn't already published on Switch. And it's also just bizarre. Like it's also niche. So like we're talking about like an amalgam here of like a vibe that Nintendo's year. And also, I do think from a communication standpoint and a marketing standpoint, this is maybe one of the most interesting games Nintendo's ever done. And so that also exemplifies this year, which had a very weird set of marketing cycles where things were given their own kinds of beats, and that was definitely one of the most standout moments of the year.
I actually was thinking about this game primarily because of that later point.
Yeah.
Obviously, Emio announced in a extremely strange way with a very clipped teaser, M-rated teaser
Yeah.
that us and Bo and the larger community were really pouring over to extract any detail from. I mean, I was looking at this with such scrutiny that I was looking at the end screen of the trailer and using that to extrapolate out based on the end screens of other videos that it was a Nintendo published game.
Yeah.
Like, that's the extent to which people were fascinated by this. Again, a small group of people, but we're in that small group.
No. A lot more people were fascinated by it before it was
That's actually a
announced.
good point. That's a great point. It was an interesting marketing device because obviously what this game is very niche, and what that presented itself as, this M-rated, like, pseudo FMV style trailer, was something very different from Nintendo, when indeed what it was something not that different, but nonetheless extremely interesting, not only because it's the proper revival of Famicom Detective Club beyond the remakes, but because it's illustrative of an intriguing new balance in who's making Nintendo games.
They made shoes obviously like that.
That's a really great point, actually. That gave me shivers.
Adidas.
Obviously, Sakamoto is heavily involved. Sakamoto, this is really his brainchild, and he's here and celebrating the game. But of course, it's also co-developed by mages.
Yeah.
And this is really a theme throughout the year.
Yeah.
These teams external to Nintendo EPD carrying the year with actually very, very, very rare exception.
The only games that I am confident that a major Nintendo internal team worked on, at least in some development capacity, are Nintendo World Championships and Echoes of Wisdom. And of course, Nintendo Cube is an internal studio at Nintendo, but they're not an EPD group.
Technically, Mario vs. Donkey Kong made by
MST.
True.
That's a good point. But again, not an EPD group.
Right. The point is, and this is what sort of, I think, also colors interest in Switch 2.
Yeah.
Nintendo's EPD groups, their main development groups in Kyoto and in Tokyo, are basically all clearly working on the next system.
Yeah.
And its games. And that left, I think, us in a very interesting place of seeing what it looks like when IP, not talent, is what's familiar.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think Mario and Luigi Brothership really was put through the ringer as a result because of this. Because obviously that game co-developed by Acquire, primarily developed by Acquire with some EPD support. And again, the EPD support groups certainly were involved throughout the year, but the core ones that lead their own development weren't. Acquire, not, I think, quite dialed in to the tempo of Mario and Luigi, which is not a surprise. Only about, I think it's less than 6 people from the original staff of Alpha Dream were involved in that game. The results, in my view, were mixed. I played that game for about 8 hours. It didn't really move me, I have to say. I mean, it moved me more than the other Mario RPGs, but that bar is like all the way down here. But it caused a lot of strife.
This year.
That's true. It caused a lot of strife in the community, and it didn't review too well, and that's sort of a theme across this year. Now, I'm not saying that, with the exception of bad reviews or middling reviews.
Yeah.
I meant to say, rather. Endless Ocean Luminous is the only one with really bad reviews. The rest were in the 70s, but I think that's a little bit lower than we expect, 70s and 80s, for a lot of these series. And so I think it's fair to say that this is in contention for the weakest year of Switch in terms of quality. I wouldn't say in terms of intrigue.
No,
it's not my bottom year personally, but I think it's certainly in that conversation.
Yeah, that is what is so fascinating about this year. Is I think this is maybe more than any year in Nintendo history, more interesting to talk about. There are more teams
Yeah.
and stories behind these games and differing marketing strategies. And as we were mentioning earlier, a announcement cadence and a tenor in the Nintendo community that is totally unique to this year. But to me, what mostly colors when I look at this lineup of games is that I'm not I'm not moved. I'm not compelled
Yeah.
by this lineup of games from a I want to play these. I enjoyed these. These will end up on my favorite games list. Echoes of Wisdom really being the only one that I resonated with. Super Mario Party Jamboree, I think, is a fantastic game, and it's certainly
Yeah.
the game that I like most out of the Mario Party series, and I think it'll be one that'll be reevaluated and gain fandom as time goes on. But the bulk of the games this year were either remakes, of which I didn't play any of. I played a little bit of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, but I didn't play Thousand Year Door. I didn't play Another Code, and I didn't play Luigi's Mansion 2. Or they were games that are, to me as a Nintendo fan, very interesting that they happened, but once I got my
Yeah.
hands on them, I was like, oh. And that quality kind of seeped into a lot of this, and especially with Emio, a game that I know
Yeah.
that our friend Bo loves quite a lot. But I did not find particularly compelling outside of the post game of that game. There's like a 90-minute or 60-minute once the credits have rolled, you get like a little extra segment. That's by far the most interesting segment of the game. But up to that point, I just sat there and played like what 7-8 hours of something that I was just like and just kind of hammering A at.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the tenor that I take with a lot of these games, like my approach to like thinking about them on like a subjective like enjoyment level. I was like,
Yeah.
I did play these, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like I'm looking at the list. Another code I didn't play, but I did buy when I was drunk.
Yeah.
I want to play that at some point. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I liked a lot.
Yeah.
Peach Showtime, I really didn't. Endless Ocean, I liked a lot, and I'll circle back to Endless Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Thousand Year Door, I think, is among the most impressive remasters of the generation.
Sure.
And it's not as impressive as Metroid Prime, but what is really? Jean really loved Louise mentioned too.
Give her
I didn't play it, but I watched her play it when she takes forever to beat games. When she finally beats it, I'm gonna play it, and I'm intrigued too, because that's the only Luigi's Mansion game I haven't played.
Yeah, me too.
But I think what really stuck out for me this year are from the Nintendo published side of things, principally Echoes of Wisdom and Mario Jamboree.
Yeah.
Jean and I are playing Jamboree very regularly.
Yeah.
And I think it's supremely impressive. I really love it. I think it's a categorical step up from anything Indie Cubed has made before.
Yeah.
And I think the more you play it, the more you explore the side modes and everything, it really does unfold as a fantastic addition to Nintendo's roster of local multiplayer games.
Yeah. Well, I think that game
yeah.
in one area I do want to talk about, kind of also exemplifying this year in a different way of Mario Party is an interesting place on Switch. We've had 2 entries, one of which was had mixed reception, generally positive with Super Mario Party, and then Mario Party Superstars, a game that is a largely compilation of old content, kind of repackaged with new graphics. That one is well received, but isn't a new game. And Mario Party Jamboree, I think, kind of was the game that people have been waiting like over a decade for, of a full force Mario Party, lots of its own ideas, not as many like weird half-assed side modes that people kind of complain about, like boards in the traditional way are back, lots of new ideas, new characters that they actually Super Mario Party had a couple of those as well. I remember when Goomba was in Super Mario Party, I was like, that's goofy. But also another part of this year is that the games were not as popular on a sales level, and Super Mario Party Jamboree is a good example of that, where it's selling nowhere near what Super Mario Party or Mario Party Superstars were, like, adjusted for time. And I think that that's because it's a third Mario Party game on Switch, and so it's diminishing returns for a project that I think is higher quality, and people I think would agree with it, but most people aren't willing to go get that extra game because, like, well, I either have 1 or 2 games of basically the same kind on Switch already.
I might be wrong, but I thought Mario Party was like one of the only exceptions to the poor sales this year. Obviously, we've not gotten any number reported for it.
Yeah.
And I believe it opened larger in the UK than I
Oh.
want to say even Superstars did.
Okay. I might be conflating that with like basically everything
Well,
else.
well, that's what's important. I just wanted to make the distinction because I
I
think that
sincerely might have made that mistake.
because that game to me, Mario Party Jamboree, is illustrative of what I think most of the successful Switch era titles are, which is
Yeah.
a sort of realization of fan hopes and
Yeah.
dreams, as corny as that
Yeah.
sounds. And I think that that's why it did rather well when various other titles very much did not. I mean, one that certainly didn't, that we have demonstrative evidence, at least from the launch period of, is Mario and Luigi Brothership.
Yeah.
And then we do have sales numbers, which are soft for things like Peach Showtime, Luigi's mentioned 2 HD, and obviously neither Emio nor Another Code nor Endless Ocean cracked 1 million units
Did Nintendo
sold.
World Championships? Or is that also?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't
I
actually. I'm
would
not
be
positive about that.
incredibly surprised if it did, frankly.
I would be too.
Yeah.
You know what game did do fairly well? Actually, was Mario vs. Donkey Kong. Well, comfortably over 1 million sold, like 1.2 million or something.
Yeah.
Which I have to, which you have to imagine for that project in particular is a pretty solid success, and I would say, frankly, not probably better than you could have expected for that.
Yeah.
In any other year of the system.
Yeah.
A game like Echoes of Wisdom, though, which I think is the best game Nintendo published this year, and
definitely.
in my view, I actually rank it number 6 in my feeling on the overall Zelda series. I truly love that game. That's the sort of game that is certainly hurt by a lack of interest, too many competing Zelda products in the system, and it should have been bigger, and it could have been in a different year. But obviously we're seeing what happens when you get into year 7 of a system like this. We're obviously the furthest we've ever been between the reveal of the previous Nintendo system to the next, and so we're feeling the effects of that. As a player myself, I'm still enjoying a number of these games. Sure. Again, not to the same degree as past years, but in reality, most years of Switch, there's a lot of Nintendo games that I play that think, okay, that was fine, that was cool, I like that, okay.
Yeah.
And then there's a handful, 3 or 4 that I truly love.
Yeah, totally.
And this year, I got Jamboree, I got Echoes of Wisdom, I got Endless Ocean Luminous, and again, I want to get back to that one as it relates to where it was announced, which was very compelling. And then I also got, which I just want to shout out, Splatoon 3 Side Order.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Really, I think an astounding expansion, another banger from Nintendo EPD Group 5. So I guess that is like sort of a EPD. The EPD group did put out something really good this year.
That's
true. It was an expansion. To me, I won't get too deep into it, but it's illustrative in my view of the way in which EPD 5 I think is gets closer and closer with every new content drop, be it a full game or expansion, to asserting itself as maybe the best or most important EPD group. Between Splatoon and Animal Crossing, they're responsible for massive series. They look beautiful. They play great. They're always full of fun ideas. And I really think Splatoon 3's base game and Side Order are among the best single-player experiences you can have from Nintendo on Switch across all the years.
Sure.
So I really love that. But let's talk about Endless Ocean Luminous, and let's talk about the partner showcase it was in, and sort of use that as a larger point to discuss the way Nintendo was and intriguingly wasn't communicating with the audience.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned Emio earlier as an interesting IP revival, and I do think that in terms of conversation, that was certainly the one of that and Another Code and Endless Ocean that broke into the mainstream the most. I mean, certainly people were talking about that reveal the most. It having the producer of Metroid attached to it, name-wise, certainly gave it enough buzz where there were people outside of the people that would usually talk about a visual novel, sort of talking about it. It being an M-rated game got a lot of coverage, even from people that didn't end up like playing or reviewing the game. But for us, Endless Ocean was the one that grabbed our attention the most. It was the one that we, I mean, easily, it actually might have been the game we combined played the most of this year. I don't really know how much.
Well, no, that's definitely Echoes of Wisdom, but
we
both play a lot.
Yeah, no, I guess I definitely played more Zelda, but I think you've played so much. You have to have played more Endless Ocean than Zelda, right?
No.
No?
No, I think Switch is telling me that I have 10 hours or more in Endless Ocean
Oh,
Luminous.
and then what? 15 or something in Echoes of Wisdom?
Well, we'll get to that when we get to
Oh,
my
true.
playtime. I think my exact hour count for Echoes of Wisdom was like 22 or something.
Oh yeah, I have 18 hours for Echoes of Wisdom. I just see that on my side here. Okay, so my bad, but regardless, it was certainly
As
one
a
that we played a lot
sidebar, I always think that I've played games way longer than I have, and then I get
in
these
your
numbers. I'm
mind.
like, I just don't. Yeah, I don't agree with you, but that's not important.
Yeah, but to the point of Endless Ocean Luminous, um,
Yeah,
I have to say that for me, this is probably the most disappointing game of the
yeah,
year because it's the one in which I saw the most potential and the most potential personal enjoyment or personal connection
yeah,
to that ended up uh, feeling quite empty to me and feeling quite, as we talked about quite significantly in our review of the game, which I think is one of our
yeah,
best videos of this year. For me, feeling very, very stale and lifeless, and it just another thing that this very much exemplifies is a low budget project, and that's not necessarily
yeah,
an insult, and it can be a positive. It can't like it doesn't need to be a hindrance. There are certainly some low effort, or not low effort, low budget projects that came out this year that I do have quite a bit more respect for. But Endless Ocean Luminous is to me the one that feels the lowest budget, just from the presentation and the content reutilization and the visual stylings and things. That really could have been a massive highlight of the generation for me.
yeah,
And now is, I think, among the worst projects they've published this generation. I really don't have much positive to say about it, other than the
yeah,
fact that I'm very glad that it happened because I like that it shows that Nintendo is willing to diversify and give. I mean, Arika's a team that's been working with this entire generation, but give them a try to have like a bigger thing. So I don't know. I'm very, very conflicted on that game, but I think I mostly come down on the negative side.
Don't you think Dr. Luigi was a big thing they let Erika do?
That wasn't this generation, though. I was just only talking about this generation.
Of course, and Dr. Luigi eclipses everything I've ever
Absolutely.
played.
Well, they're doing
Uh,
like Tetris Terror Instinct or whatever next year. Parts of the, or no. Are there the championship ones? Some fucking Tetris game.
yeah. I'm not going to relitigate it because you can go watch your review, and also I'll espouse my praise for Endless Ocean Luminous when we get to my top 10 games of 2024
Oh
in a
sure.
different video. But nonetheless, I wanted to raise it not only because it was a game that we're different sides of the same coin because you have almost no positives about the game. I have almost no negatives about the game. I just really dug it. But again, we'll talk about that at a different juncture. What was particularly interesting to me about Endless Ocean Luminous is not only was it a Wii era revival, which I was really
Yeah.
happy about. Endless Ocean, a
A
game that I've
revival.
a revival, a game I've played quite closely and written about in the past. It was also a game that ended up being in a partner showcase this year,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, where typically, and there's been a lot of shove us in the locker worthy semantics discussions about whether Nintendo's been in partner showcases before, whether this upsets the hierarchy of power in the Nintendo showcase
Uh
universe.
huh.
Nonetheless, the fact that it's there to me is illustrative of a larger point I want to make,
Mm.
of avoiding the potholes of what this means for partner
Sure.
showcases. By zooming out and looking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we had no proper earlier Nintendo Direct.
No.
We had nothing in January or February, nothing in March. We had one in June,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, which was a real highlight, a
Yeah.
real
Totally.
strong show, and I want to circle back to that one. But then nothing for the rest of the year.
True. Well,
Nintendo's
there was the partner showcase combo indie world bento box
right,
direct.
and there was the Donkey Kong Land Direct, which
And
was
the
the best direct
museum
of the year,
direct.
and the Museum Direct. But in terms of Nintendo
And
announcing
the Alarmo
games,
direct.
and the Alarmo Direct, that wasn't called a direct,
No, it
was it?
wasn't. No.
They didn't do any proper announcements outside of that June Direct, with the exception of putting Endless Ocean Luminous in that partner showcase,
Yeah.
announcing Emio fucking randomly
Yeah.
through cryptic videos, and then dropping Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition,
and Nintendo
Xenoblade
World
Chronicles X
Championships.
Definitive Edition. That's a great point, and
Yeah,
that leaked
yeah,
via ESRB
yeah.
entirely. So I think it was very strange watching them quite deliberately decide to spool out information the way they did,
Yeah,
particularly because, as you and I have talked about many times, there was enough information to cobble together a September Direct
totally.
with,
Oh, absolutely.
and they chose not to, which I think is very intriguing. I don't know how
Yeah.
else to
Well,
frame that.
I think that it's intriguing that this year didn't have a three-peat of directs, because I think that the
Yeah,
fact that they didn't do a direct at the beginning of this year contributed immediately to the uneasy tone in the Nintendo community for the entire year. I think that was the first
yeah,
domino to fall. People were I don't know if you remember this, but just like every single day, where's the direct? Where's the direct? Partner showcase? When are we going to get announcements? When are we getting announcements? Pyro
yeah.
like spookily existing in the background for like his last gasp. Like it was a really really weird time, and I do think that if there had been, let's just even say a February Direct Mini, which has happened 2 or 3 times across the course
Yeah,
of the Switch
yeah.
generation, and people are disappointed by those, but usually they're like they satiate enough. It's like
And then Mario Tennis Aces, how can we be disappointed with that?
that's true. But if there had been a February Direct Mini that had trailers for some of the upcoming games. Like if you
Yeah,
remember, they didn't do a second trailer for Thousand Year Door or Luigi Mansion 2 until they just dropped them on YouTube one day. Actually, no,
on Mario Day.
On Mario Day they had like a weird Mario Day presentation where they announced another movie and stuff. Like that could have been in a February
Yeah,
March direct. The reveal of Nintendo World Championships and maybe even Emio could have been in that, and those would have been totally fine marketing cycles for those games. I think it would have gotten a little more eyes on them. Emio maybe questionable there, but that would have been a very low stakes but a reasonable content wise start to the
yeah.
year in terms of direct. And then at the end of this year with things like, I mean, Alarmo probably wouldn't have been in a direct,
I don't think so.
but with Xenoblade, and of course we still have Pokemon, and we have Metroid hanging up in the ether, and the imminent
Yeah,
releases at that time of Mario Luigi Brothership, which hadn't gotten another
yeah,
trailer, and Mario Party Jamboree, which had gotten another trailer, but they could have done something there. And Fitness Boxing 3, another Nintendo published game announced in a partner showcase, could have been announced there.
forgot
Like
about that.
an announcement cadence wise, there was the content for this year, but because they didn't present it in the traditional way, and also because a lot of it was admittedly niche, that I think gave people a really uneasy look at Nintendo. Like they're not saying anything,
Yeah,
they're not saying anything. That's not true. They were saying a lot. They were putting out a lot of games, but people just didn't know to listen because they were scattered to the wind. All these different like trailers that no one talked about, and directs that were just like kind of dropped one day that are about a topic that people aren't particularly interested in. Like it was like all this like
yeah,
ether and webbing of like half Nintendo announcements that meant it was consistent across the year, but it wasn't solid.
yeah. And like, Bo made a video about the oddity of
Take a shot, by the way, every time we
October.
reference Bo.
Yeah, and if you don't know who Bo is, we're not going to tell you.
No,
But if you're watching this video, you know who Bo is. Um,
he
talking
needs our
about
help.
talking about October in particular. Remember when they were announcing like multiple NSO drops in the same week, or
Yeah,
dropping
yeah,
Nintendo Music, or all this shit? And we'll talk about Alarmo and Nintendo Music separately.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was quite strange, and there was an interesting video from Nintendo Forecaster that I really
By the
liked.
way, best channel of the year. Channel of the year right there.
I truly
Nintendo
think that
Forecast.
Nintendo Forecaster is the best Nintendo YouTuber that's ever done it.
Yeah.
Ever.
What
Period.
about Josh Thomas? It's deep competition.
Um, Making a video about Nintendo Directs and the ways that the format was iterated on by Iwata,
Mm,
and the ways that Nintendo Direct is ultimately just a vehicle for delivering
yeah,
news.
yeah,
It's not the only possible vehicle for delivering Nintendo
yeah.
news. And I wonder if there's a world in which that format has not been erased, but taken so far off its axis that we should no longer expect to any degree of regularity. A direct at this point in the year, a direct at that point in the year, and a direct in that point of the year.
Sure.
Now, obviously, Nintendo is more consistent with these than inconsistent, but nonetheless, there's been plenty of tumult across the last couple of years, no doubt, about directs happening weird times or being
2023, I
skipped
think,
or
had 3 at the usual times.
yeah, 2023 was regular.
Yeah. 22
But
was
2023
not. 21 was not. 20 was not.
20 yeah.
Yeah.
So
We're going.
it's
We're 1 out of 4 for the decade so far.
it's up in the air exactly how Nintendo's going to treat these moving forward. But I want to talk about some of this larger non-game stuff.
Yeah.
Your Alarmo, your music, but there's a couple other game-specific things I want to go through, and I want to just make sure we also hit anything you want to hit on in this way. I want to shout out Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble.
Oh sure, yeah, Switch exclusive.
Again, I will talk about this one much more extensively in my favorite games of the year video, but that is a core exclusive. And again, I think it's indicative of who this year was speaking to, because I see that and I go, oh my gosh, it's Monkey Ball. This is, in my opinion, like an honorary Nintendo series.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been exclusive games on, exclusive game on Vita, but otherwise,
exclusive
every
game
Monkey Ball
on
game
N-Gage.
and N-Gage. Actually, that's a great point. Other than N-Gage and Vita, technically Deluxe has support. Monkey Ball has really been a Nintendo first or Nintendo concurrent series. 1 and 2 GameCube exclusives. So to me, that was a real homecoming moment to have, with no sign of it being ported.
Yeah.
A proper console exclusive game. Maybe. I mean, there was
RGG loves porting their games.
Sure, but there's an interview.
And Banana Mania was ported.
Yeah, but Banana Mania was all platforms day one.
Oh, my bad. I guess I forgot about that. My apologies.
They did an interview a couple months ago where they said, "Yeah, we built this game for Switch."
Oh, sure.
Now that doesn't mean that they're not going to bring it elsewhere, but as of now, there's no sign that it's anything other than a Nintendo exclusive, and that is my favorite Nintendo Switch exclusive of the year.
Oh, that's fair. Well, it's an option. I said it was
Okay,
fair. I
enough.
want to walk that back.
Fair enough,
It's
fair
not
enough.
fair, but.
And NSO had some really cool stuff. I want to shout out very quickly. Particularly, there was some really cool regional exclusive stuff that came to the service this year, which made me really happy. F-Zero Climax. I really loved going through that game. I implore people to play it. It is not translated, but it is mostly in English. People go check it out. Don't get scared away by the couple lines of Japanese text like I saw somebody on Twitter do the other day. It is in English, folks. Play through the first 5 minutes of the game. Obviously, we also got the Starfleet games, but those I think are a lot less playable without an English translation. What are you looking at?
I just pulled up a list of NSO games that were like just the Wikipedia actually has a dated and every announcement sorted by console or I guess app Nintendo Switch Online games list. And did you know that at the end of October the game Shadow Man was added to N64 Online? What the? I don't even hear about that. What the fuck is Shadow Man?
Again, this is when they were announcing a fucking game all the time. It was that and like I think Turok 2. They're like, here's some spooky games.
And we got the Donkey Kong Land games spooled out over the course of like 2 weeks. Really, really bizarre. Tetris
By the way,
DX
on
just
that,
launched like a week ago.
Yeah, and they had a video with Alexei Pajitnov, which was interesting.
Yeah,
for that. Donkey Kong Land 3, the Game Boy Color version of that game was previously exclusive to Japan. You have to download the Japanese app to play, but that is a really cool version of that game. What else is making you balk on that list?
What the fuck is Cosmo Gang the Puzzle?
That one I don't.
What's Big Run?
That's a mode in Splatoon.
There are just so many weird games this year, which is not the most exciting, but I think it is where the most value comes for me with NSO is in games that I hadn't heard of. As we were mentioning, there were some games that were not or that weren't available in the U.S. until just this year. And there's obviously big cooperation from a company like Rare, who put a ton of their games on NSO this year, which is incredibly exciting. RC Pro Am and Snake Rattle and Roll and
Yes.
Battletoads and all that stuff. But I do like when I look at a list of games and I've never heard of them
Yeah.
for these systems, which just gives it more breadth.
It does. I think NSO had quite a good year this year.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, they finally
speaking of,
added Golf and Mock Rider and Urban
they
Champion
did.
in July. That's interesting. And Donkey Kong Junior Math. Yeah, it's interesting that they had a so many years later. I mean, we're talking 5 years since NSO started. Which started with NES and mostly black box NES games. They had a 5 years later drop of, oh shit, we forgot to put these on. Here's Golf and Mock Rider and Urban Champion and Donkey Kong Junior Math. Really, really bizarre.
Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
Math.
I also want to shout out F-Zero 99,
Sure.
um, which is such a boss game. I can't even believe it.
Mhm.
F-Zero 99, there was a tweet that went out that I think at this point must have been a typo or a misunderstanding on behalf of whoever posted it, where they're
Yeah.
like, we're never updating this game again. And then they updated it constantly. There was just a new winter event the other day, which was super, super fun.
Yeah.
But the biggest update this year was doubtlessly the addition of tracks based on the Satellaview F-Zero tracks, which was an astoundingly cool update. That was
Yeah.
also concurrent to F-Zero Climax and F-Zero Max Velocity coming into service. Or maybe it was GP Legend. I don't remember the
GP
order that
Legend,
those came.
yes, the same day.
Um,
Oh no. Maximum Velocity was early in the year. Climax and GP Legend were in October.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
We're getting a new F-Zero game.
I think that's totally true.
Whether the next, I actually think GX HD early next year is fairly possible, but I think that's just again on the on ramp to the new game.
Yeah.
Again, sidebar. I just want to shut that out. But let's talk about some other intriguing. Oh, also, just it's not worth much of a mention. Animal Crossing Pocket Camp Complete is a very interesting game.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fully offline version of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp.
Yeah.
I think it's worth buying, particularly because it's only $10 right now. They're gonna raise the price later.
Yeah.
It's actually a very good game. I played it quite a bit back when it was new. I bought the complete edition. I want to play at some point.
Yeah.
Nothing else to say about that.
Oh,
but
finally, to wrap up the NSO section, I was just looking at the
yeah,
GBA section. The Golden Sun games were added this year. That's a big deal.
yes,
Bringing those back. Mother 3 was added to Japan. So we have to mention it. Doesn't really mean much to us.
yeah.
Link's
Metroid.
Path and Four Swords, which is a really big deal because that's a link cable ass
We gotta
game.
play that still.
Yeah, I guess we do, don't we? And then also the Starfy trilogy in Japanese were added to even the American one, which I think is good. I'm excited to see, especially with an era like that, bringing over some other region exclusive games, making them available in the West. I think is really exciting. And then finally, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red
Right.
Rescues Team was actually added, which I didn't hear people talk about, but that's the first Pokemon game available on Game Boy Advance. I guess there's
Snap.
Puzzle League and Snap
And Stadium.
and the Stadium games are the lots of N64 stuff. That's all except for Hey You Pikachu. That's all the Pokemon games on N64. But it'll be interesting to see if they spool those out because those to me feel like perfect late generation. Hey, we're finally adding things that people care about. Pokemon is one that will get a ton of buzz around it. So I would not be surprised if next year a lot of the additions are random Pokemon spin-offs across all of these consoles.
I'm sticking to my guns that Game Freak is going to bring Gens 1 to 3 to Switch, but they're going to charge $9.99 a game on the eShop for them.
Yeah, they did that on 3DS.
Like Fire Emblem 1,
Yeah, sure.
which is weird. Yeah, Metroid also came over this year.
Oh,
we
Zero
got
Mission.
finally
Yeah,
got Zero Mission. Goat. Let's talk about NSO.
Wait, hold on.
Let's
what
talk
we can
about two things that happened for NSO members
Oh,
this year.
true. Yeah.
One of
things.
them. What's the third?
Okay,
I'm thinking of
keep talking. Just keep talking.
Connex. Let's start
Yeah.
with Connex.
Yeah, that was the third. Yeah.
But I don't know what the second is, but we'll get to it.
Yeah.
Connex is not a game. Connex is what people are calling the network test that neither Tucker or I got into.
Yeah.
It is something of a Roblox style
Strand.
UGC Strand game with Spider-Man swinging new IP with little caveman characters.
Yep.
I don't know what to make of any of that. I don't even really know what to say about it. I just hope that one day it releases.
It
That's I
will.
don't like.
No, it
Yeah,
absolutely will. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this.
you didn't play it, so you're
No, I
not.
didn't. But I
You know,
if I say Bo shared his screen with me and I watched him play like an hour, but does that get his channel demonetized? They can't find him. They don't know who he is. Actually, they do.
allegedly he did
They
that.
gave him code to seer, so that's why he didn't talk about it on his channel. But yeah, so
He
there
talked
was
about it on his channel.
no, he didn't show any his footage or anything because you
That's
can't do
true,
that.
but Nintendo would know if you showed footage. Nobody could show footage of Connex.
True, yes, but I did watch him play about an hour of it, and
Yeah,
he played it for a couple of hours. This I think actually is the most interesting thing Nintendo did this year. Not only because
yeah,
it's a game that they didn't want people to know about. It had an incredibly limited thing, as you were alluding to earlier. It was available only to a select number of Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack owners. So you had to be in like in a niche, and then you went online, you put in your information, and then it filled up in like what it was less than 10 seconds or something like that. It was
I was
ridiculous.
on the page, logged in, refreshing to hit. Okay, I want to be in the playtest, and I didn't get in.
I was on the page not logged in, and so I didn't get it. Which is more of a problem with me. But and then when the game the play test actually happened, it was for 2 weeks. It was only a certain number of players, and then the game was fully data mined by people that had the app downloaded on their Switch,
Yeah,
and they discovered a like 80 song original soundtrack for this game,
yeah,
and like side modes that weren't available in this, and like an opening cutscene that you couldn't officially watch within the playtest. Like this is a full project. I don't think necessarily was in that app or in that playtest is reflective of a completed project. I would say it's
yeah.
probably 75% of the way there. There's probably some outer polishing and a little bit more identity and like I'm sure there'll be a tutorial and an onboarding and things that weren't available in the game itself. But what I watched Bo play was it's unlike. I mean, it really is like Roblox meets Dreams with like funny Nintendo, like a kind of Nintendo charm. Like it's totally unlike visually, it's unlike anything Nintendo's ever done.
Yeah.
Structurally, there's not really any game like it because you build up these towers that expand your bubble that are in like a dead zone, and then you teleport back, and you can buy like licenses by like passing tests to give you like extra abilities, and you can like drive vehicles, and you're also like a little caveman monkey man with Spider-Man powers, and like I don't know, I think it kind of look like strawberries or something like that. It is just every direction you can point at this game is
Yeah.
you like it's enigma. It's like curving away. You're like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, what do you even say about something like that?
I don't know because we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not of the opinion that like, oh, it's just a test to, figure out new functionality for Animal Crossing or
Hmm.
Splatoon or whatever, as some people are speculating. I more so just wonder if like it's something that gets finished,
Hmm.
and we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, there's a lot of text in the game, and there's like the shop in the game, and there's references to getting banned and how you get unbanned and all kinds of stuff, and durations of activities that far exceed the window of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So there is clearly a project that is on its way
Yeah.
to some form of release or cancellation.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe we'll see it in 2025, or maybe, which frankly I think is a more likely scenario, it turns into a Project Guard, Project Giant Robot type of thing, where
Oh.
it disappears for a long time and it comes back as something
Sure.
else.
Yeah, I think that is very possible. I mean, in the state that we
Yeah,
saw it in, and the weird identity that it had, it does feel like something that could be retooled into
yeah,
something that has, let's just say, a Animal Crossing or Splatoon or a Pokemon skin on it or whatever. But
yeah,
I hope that doesn't happen because I would love to see a new, not major IP, but a new IP from Nintendo that we thought we
yeah,
were going to get more of this generation, and it didn't really pan out that way. And I hope that this is number one. I think that this is probably going to be some sort of incentive for Switch Online. I think when it comes out because
yeah,
it's a purely online game. I don't think it. I mean, I think could sell it individually, but given that NSO is going to be sticking around, they have confirmed that, and will be available on Switch too. I think this will probably be a cross-gen online multiplayer thing, just like a hub to screw around in as a Nintendo Switch Online incentive.
Yeah.
And they can have little in-game events and promotions when new games are coming out and things. So I'm really excited to see what this means for Nintendo as they better establish themselves from the start in the next generation with a very healthy online ecosystem. NSO doesn't need to be started. They've had people paying. They've
Yeah.
really, over the course of the generation, worked out the kinks in their online games. Their online games work a lot more solidly now. They did like new servers or something in like 2021. I can't remember exactly what that was.
Yeah.
And they've even gone back and added, like Super Mario Party added online functionality to some of their games. So this to me signals, I do think we'll see the game. I think it is real. I hope it's a new IP. And it signals that they're really going to try to double down on social experiences, which you and I both agree is something that Nintendo is good at, but certainly something they could put more effort into. And I hope this is a big part of that.
Let's sort of wrap up our thoughts on the year, and then we'll get into what we actually played, and then we'll end just looking ahead a little bit. But let's talk about what Nintendo did outside of Switch this year, because they did quite a bit.
The two other NSO incentives.
Alarma's not really an NSO incentive.
What, couldn't you only order it at first with NSO?
Oh, no, you're right about that. You're right about that.
Ding!
I want to talk very briefly about the Donkey Kong Land theme park. I have a whole video breaking down emotionally as I got excited seeing Cranky Kong, but also breaking down the details of the park. So again, I won't get too much into it. You can go find that video, but TLDR, to me, it looks like in a lot of ways a massive improvement over the core Mario Park, which I have visited, the Hollywood version of. I'm just over the moon, and I can't wait for the opening of this park in Orlando later in 2025. Yeah. I will be going. I think it's very exciting that Donkey Kong is getting this push. Yeah. Obviously, there is controversy among people who have too much time on their hands regarding Donkey Kong Country Returns HD. But between the park, between the sort of sudden deluge of Donkey Kong Land games, which I suspect are going to be followed up with DK64, Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
I also think King of Swing.
Totally.
I really want to. King of Swing is one of the few Donkey Kong games I've not played, so I really would like to play King of Swing.
That will absolutely be added. And also, where the hell is Donkey Kong on Game Boy? That's a ridiculous omission. It's absolutely asinine.
Maybe
it's Donkey Kong December. Maybe it'll drop on Christmas.
I would love DK. What day at Christmas is a Wednesday, so they could. No, I'm not gonna fucking drop anything this week. They don't have anybody to check over the servers to make sure that the servers are running.
They don't take the holiday off, I don't think, in Japan, do they?
Yeah, not a single person in Japan works for that week.
That's not true.
I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. Donkey Kong, I think this Donkey Kong stock is on the rise, and I think there'll be a new game in 2026. But theme parks, it's exciting that they're continuing to expand in this way. It's indicative of the way Nintendo is moving to be larger than just games. Intriguingly, and I mentioned this to you, the key art for Donkey Kong Country Returns HD is exactly the same aesthetic as the theme park. And so I think we're going to be moving into an era in 2026 and beyond, really, when there's more parks, there's more movies, things where I think there's going to be a closer parity between games and external things.
Yeah, sure.
You had suggested that they might do that with the then unannounced 2D Mario game when the Mario movie was coming out. Ended up not being the case.
For the better, for wonder, by the way.
Yes, I agree. But I think that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. But let's move beyond that, because you have a theme park lover and a theme park hater. But what we both
I thought that trailer looked stupid. And I really do not want to go. And it really awakened how much I hate fucking theme parks watching that goddamn direct. Watching you watching it just made me sad.
Because you would rather fucking make a fucking Google sheet of information or something. You would rather be given the attendance data for the theme park and make a sheet out of it, like a Google sheet out of it.
I should maybe get into like Roller Coaster Tycoon, because then I can make them like I know a lot of people do this from Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I could just make a hellscape. I'm like, this is what it's really like Like everyone's sad, like they're pooping on the ground, like there's trash everywhere. That's what in my mind. That's how I view a theme park anyway. So I've been able to externalize it finally.
Fair enough. They just re-released like the Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Not important. Is important to a different conversation, and that is when are they going to release Roller Coaster Tycoon Classic? The answer is they already did.
Oh,
Let's talk about Nintendo music
yeah.
because we both love video game music.
Mm-hmm.
We both love Nintendo music.
Yeah.
I think anybody watching this video knows what Nintendo music is, so I want to pose a different question to you rather than your overarching thoughts on the app. Do you still use it?
No.
Me neither.
No, but I don't. I don't think that's a commentary on the app. I think it's just me being set in my ways, which is when I want to listen to music. I number one, I usually do it for my computer, and not for my
Yeah.
phone. Because my music, just for anyone's anyone's edification other than Abram who knows this about me, my music is one playlist called Music Playlist on YouTube that I've been building for 11 years. Like every
Yeah.
song from any source that I've ever liked, I just put into one playlist called Music on YouTube. And that means sometimes they get delisted. And then I'm scrolling through and it's like, this video is no longer available. I'm like, which song was it? I don't know. And actually, I know, actually, sometimes I do know because I wrote a like 600 song. I like copied every name. So when one got deleted, I could like search and see where the numbers went, like skipped, and then I could see which one it was. So I could re add it from another source. I should just use Spotify or something, but I don't. This is just the depths of my depravity. But Nintendo tried to solve that for me by giving me a really high quality and I think well presented app for a source for music from their games. And they updated it quite consistently, which I think is good and it will grow to something like really substantial in the future. But I
Yeah.
am happy with it. I'm glad that it happened. Again, it shows a diversification. But I'm broken as a person, so I don't use it consistently.
You don't use it for reasons that I don't think I could find in like a group of people. If I had to get 100 people to use music and ask them why they're no longer using it, not a single one of those people would say what you said to me. I think that I think it is a perfectly Nintendo solution
Sure.
to the problem of their soundtrack
Yeah.
availability.
Well, it's Nintendo's solution to a Nintendo created problem.
Yeah, I mean it's so to me this is interesting because without getting into it at all, services like Spotify, particularly Spotify being the worst offender, are not great for the artists that use the platform. They
Yeah.
don't pay them out very well, and they sort of they don't have control over their music necessarily. It goes on Spotify. It's gonna be putting all the kinds of playlists. It's gonna be favored, not favored, based on all number of factors. They're not gonna make a lot of money per stream. There's a lot of issues with Spotify. So the idea of Nintendo saying, okay, well, we have such a strong catalog of music, we're going to make our own service. We're going to release it as an incentive for our subscription. It's going to help drive interest in signing up. It's going to keep people subscribed. Hopefully, it's going to maybe get more people to jump in. It's interesting to me. I think it makes sense through a certain lens. I think it's cool as a challenge to Spotify, and I am interested in it. It's not the first time it's been done. Kanye West and Jay-Z tried with a service called Tidal. Kanye released his album Life of Pablo on there. Nobody gave a fuck. The album didn't matter until it came out to other services. The reason being
Maybe
is that
people will finally eventually listen to fucking Super Mario Brothers soundtrack once it leaves Nintendo Music.
well, the thing about it is that I think that there's a lot of reasons to think Nintendo Music is a great idea, but the pragmatic reality for me is twofold. A, it is so woefully shallow of a catalog of music.
Yeah.
And B, it's just impossible for me to open up my phone and want to listen to music and not click on Spotify.
Yeah.
I can't listen to my Nintendo music there, but to be honest, if I just need something when I'm working, I'll put on a jazz album, I'll put on an ambient album. That's when I'm listening to game music.
Or a Nintendo music compilation on YouTube.
Or yeah, and
which
so
are
I
incredibly
just think
common.
they're incredibly common, and Nintendo Music has no desktop client, which I think
No.
is a big
Yeah, that's interesting.
mistake.
Yeah.
So I think that this is
They probably will
a
do that
solid.
eventually.
I really hope they do. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a solid foundation. I'm not super moved by it anymore. It was cool for the first couple days, but you know, every week we're getting at least one or two soundtracks
Yeah.
added to
Hmm.
the service. So
And some cool ones
you
too.
know, I mean, when it launched, it had two DS soundtracks: Tomodachi Collection and Nintendogs.
Yeah.
Like it was an eclectic mix, which I appreciated.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
But
go look on here and see.
they added fucking Brain Age's soundtrack recently, which was
That's
weird.
so goofy. Where do I find it by game? Am I? Oh,
Um,
hold on. Nintendo Switch,
I don't remember
Wii
exactly.
U. The only Wii U soundtracks are Breath of the Wild and Mario Kart 8. Two good options for that, but like there's so many games missing from that list. The Wii only has Skyward Sword, Galaxy, and Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Hey, we did get Blazing. We get Fire Emblem and Blazing Blade.
Is GameCube still only Prime?
Yes, which is kind of funny.
If you have
Um,
to pick one soundtrack from GameCube, I would also
they
pick
do have
Prime.
Metroid
But
and Metroid Famicom Disk System, which I didn't know had different music.
yeah, it's higher quality music.
Oh, sure, yeah, different, different sound resolution. What's the fucking compression? What's
I don't know.
what's the term for like sound resolution? Hertz? I don't fucking know.
I
Yeah,
don't
but
know.
you're right. It is certainly still lacking. The Switch is pretty well represented across um, most of the main franchises. But wait, Prime Remastered. Did they redo the music for Prime Remastered? It's not the same soundtrack? That's really weird. It's on there though as its own
I
separate soundtrack.
I don't know. I think they did reorchestrate it.
Good for them. Sure, that was a good use of their money. Um, yeah, I think it's
Uh,
interesting. But it's one thing that it quickly
yeah,
lost novelty, especially because it is
yeah,
in the classic Nintendo fashion week at launch. This is something that will grow into something substantial, as I mentioned earlier. I think as
yeah,
NSO has. But this again is Nintendo's first time trying something like this, but it also feels like it has a Nintendo stank to it, as a lot of Nintendo things do. Where it's like they don't
yeah,
exactly know what they're doing, but they're trying.
yeah. It's just like I thought it was really interesting that on day one they had Wii channel music.
Yeah.
The reason I found this interesting is because to prioritize that, you have to have looked on YouTube and you have to be dialed in enough to understand that the Frutiger Arrow Wii era nostalgia is what is at the forefront in popularity of most Nintendo mixes. So they knew that. I don't think it's an accident that you can listen to the fucking forecast. You could listen to the fucking forecast channel from the first day of the
Hmm.
service. The reason I raise this is because it's clear that there was research done, and Nintendo is obviously not oblivious to the cottage industry of their music being posted to YouTube and put into playlists
Yeah.
in mixes. So
Nintendo might know about us.
they might,
We made one of those this year before the app launched.
and it's better than most of the mixes out there.
Yeah.
I love
True.
our mix. I listen to it often.
Hey, that's good. I wonder how many views it's gotten. I'm gonna go look while you're talking.
I think I'm gonna say 311.
Whoa,
It's my
that's actually
bet.
higher than I would expect. I'm gonna say 170.
But the reason I bring it up is that you have to know what you're up against, and so I get the benefit of drip feeding soundtracks over time. But here's the cool thing: Nintendo releases new games all the time, so you could have had a largely complete library, and then you could have just added the new game release soundtracks
Mm.
to keep stimulating
Yeah,
the service.
yeah. I mean, Brothership's the only game that came out after,
And they
now
didn't
fitness
even
boxing.
put
But
that soundtrack on
no,
there.
you're right. You're right. But I mean, that's the only new game that has released since then. So it's not like we have a
But
massive
sure,
sample size to work from. But
but what I'm saying
fitness
is
boxing 3, your personal trainer's not on there either.
that's actually a really critical point. I'm just saying that they knew the state of how people listen to Nintendo music, and I just think that they should have.
284, by the way, perfectly in between the actually what we both
Let's
said.
fucking go. I just think they should have come up with a strategy that provided people with more recurrent value from the jump,
Mhm.
and then kept people engaged moving forward
Yeah.
in a way that wasn't holding over us soundtracks that we can regularly listen to
yeah.
already. This is to like people make this argument about NSO, and I think it's stupid because I think there's not an equivalence between Nintendo putting a game into NSO and you download the ROM on your computer and playing it through RetroArch.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a much closer analog between listening to their music on YouTube and
Yeah.
using their app.
Yeah.
So I just think that that is a an interesting point. But it's the larger significance, obviously, is Nintendo having this new vertical of lifestyle
Yeah.
of business. Theme parks would fall under this. Their expansion into more movies and merch and everything would fall under this.
Yeah.
Nintendo Music obviously falls under this, and
appliances.
Alarmo falls into this. Yes.
Nintendo Microwavo.
Yes. And I would buy it. Even though my microwave is perfectly fine, as is.
Yeah. But if you open it and went, wahoo! That would just make your life so much better.
Alarmo is intriguing for a number of reasons. It's intriguing because it's the realization of patents and ideas that Satoru Iwata was pushing for Nintendo in a initiative that our good friend Logan Plant wrote about for IGN that didn't end up materializing until a decade later with Alarmo. I bought one. I like it. I think it's really cool. I don't regret my purchase at all. I do think that Nintendo's challenge with all these initiatives moving forward is going to be making them rewarding and worthwhile for hardcore fans without feeling transparently like they're advertising to you. And that's where I think Alarmo gets a little bit wrong.
Okay.
Because Alarmo's games you can pick from are just Switch games that are either regular sellers or games they want to keep promoting, i.e. Pikmin 4. Now, I love Pikmin. So my Alarmo never leaves the Pikmin setting. But it just feels a little transparent to me that it's just Pikmin 4.
Yeah.
If the Alarmo had a Pikmin series theme and an Animal Crossing series theme and Zelda series and Mario series and Kirby series and all this stuff, not just the particular currently available entry they want to sell, I think it would achieve the same effect without feeling like it's so transparent. So I wish that was different. But I think Alarmo is a curiously built product. I think there's interesting technology in it. I think there's interesting people behind it. And I'm glad I bought one. Yeah. And I think it signals a compelling future for Nintendo's business outside of games. I just hope that they calibrate differently. And if that was just series, not games, people would still, you would still funnel the same traffic you're trying to funnel. I just think it'd be more rewarding to engage with.
Yeah. Interesting to note, and I guess mildly important to note, they have added one new theme since it came out. They added a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe one. Again, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's the game that they're currently selling and selling quite a bit of.
Yeah.
And of course, it makes sense to include that as a part of it. But the fact that there isn't any representation of previous eras, I think, does give it an internally cohesive feel. But to your point, it doesn't necessarily appeal to hardcore fans in the way that, like, it's not a comprehensive history thing. There's not even, which I think is interesting, there's not even a, like, Mario 1 theme or Zelda 1 theme, which I think would be incredibly easy to add and would add a lot of nostalgic value to that. I think they'd be much more annoying. But it doesn't mean they shouldn't be on there for people who are like maybe like they're deaf or something like that.
Tucker, let's talk about what we played this year.
Let's
do something interesting.
Okay, fine. For once, jeez.
Look at this. We're going to do some metagaming here. Look at the time of the OBS recording right now and note that.
1:08:50.
What, an hour? I'm going to write this down.
50 seconds.
8 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah.
We can put a time code here, and the first time code from 00:00:00 will be year in review.
Yeah.
Now we're into what we played.
Sure.
And then we'll do looking ahead, and then we'll do final grades, and then there's chapters of the video. Now, Tell me the time code again, and this will be where we start the what we're playing section.
1921.
Wow. Incredible, folks. You click on a timestamp. Here you are. This is what we played in 2024 from Nintendo.
Amazing.
Now, Tucker,
Technology.
we both pulled up our year in reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go band for band with you,
Okay.
okay? Well,
Yeah.
I want to compare stats here.
Sure. The
Um,
first stat is actually what was our first game that we played
yeah.
in 2024?
Mine was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Oh, well, you're not interesting.
What was yours?
Theater Rhythm, Final Bar Line.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your date? Because I didn't play my
January
Switch
1st.
apparently until January 1th. See, I was late. January 13th is when I
Holy
first
shit.
played my Switch.
That's 2 weeks without any Mario Kart. You must have been getting like some really severe shakes.
Prior to that, I was playing F-Zero GX on my Steam Deck.
Ah, fair
So
enough.
I was still getting some racing in. The next stat here, give me first your total number of games played on Switch this year.
51.
252, one for each state.
Wait, really? Oh my god. I feel bad. Ooh, and actually, I see one on here that Rachel played on my Switch. So technically, I only played 50.
You had 51, I had 52. Yeah. Well,
who
but
played
mine's
Human Fall
also
Flat on my Switch? What?
somebody played Ape Out on my Switch. That wasn't me
That was
this
me.
year.
Yeah.
Compelling. Jean also
Actually,
played
wait.
Townscaper on my Switch.
There's actually probably a couple of those where I played it through your
Chicory.
account. Yeesh.
Townscaper, Chicory. Jean played Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz HD, and instead it made her feel ill.
She's right.
She should have played Banana
Another
Rumble.
series. Oh.
Like, how many hours did you play on Switch this year? This is the most interesting stat, I think.
203?
I played 255. Now,
Congratulations.
this for me,
You are better than me in one way and one way only.
So I was trying to look. It's not really easy to find your past years in reviews
Yeah.
because it's not like a archived bit of information.
No.
If you go to the old links, it'll say like invalid link is invalid at this point in time. But I did scroll back through Discord. I scrolled back through every photo I sent in Discord to find my screenshot of my 2023 year in review. I did this several weeks ago and I forget the number.
Do you have a ballpark?
The ballpark was like 340, I want to say. Mr. Beast. You viewer can look back through the images I've shared in the Discord and you can verify this for me.
If you want.
Now this obviously a general theme online of everybody I saw sharing their years in reviews that this was their lowest hour count on Switch.
Yeah, it probably is that for me.
This is for me.
I mean, I probably played about half of that just in Tears of the Kingdom last year.
Yeah,
and I probably played
absolutely.
about that much in Animal Crossing in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's two things. One, I moved twice. I've had a very busy year. I've played less games on the whole. I've only played. Well, Steam they give you fucking inscrutable data.
Yeah.
In the
Not
year's
useful at
end.
all.
But from what I can gather, I probably played 600 or so hours of games total across all my systems this year, which is not a lot compared to a lot of people. Now, that doesn't count the games I played on my R4 card. It doesn't count the games I played on my Wii.
Yes.
I should have gotten a Wii year in review.
That you emulated on your Steam Deck.
Yeah, they didn't have, for some reason, Steam didn't tell me that I played a lot of Super Monkey Ball Deluxe on my Steam Deck.
What the hell?
But again, it's also indicative of a weaker year.
Where's my Rallycross section?
But yeah, 255 hours. Let's look at our most played games here.
Yeah.
Let's go left for right. What's your first most played game?
My first most played game is Nintendo 64, Nintendo Switch Online, which is interesting because
you played Paper Mario.
I did play all of Paper Mario 64 on NSO. I did dabble with Josh Goldie in things like Iggy's Wrecking Balls.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I played anything else on there. I had the intent to play Majora's Mask, but it doesn't count that. That doesn't show up in my stats. It doesn't track my thought crimes, which is
Hmm.
interesting to me. But 22 hours, it was. I mean, that was probably mostly. I probably played 18 hours of Paper Mario. So that's my most
Yeah.
played game, though it is actually tied with my second most played game at 22 hours as well, being Balatro, which I played for 22 hours.
So my number one game is fraudulent, and I realize this in retrospect. My number one game is Prince of Persia, Lost Crown.
Mm-hmm. At how many
That
hours?
is at 28 hours.
That's. I mean, it's way longer than that game needs to be beaten. And you
Yeah,
didn't
you
even
know
like.
about you want to know about how many playthroughs of that game in
Oh,
28
about
hours
two.
is?
Yeah, that's a great
About
point.
about two playthroughs of that game.
Very interesting.
Um,
Oh yeah,
I love
that's
that.
why that wouldn't have shown up on mine because I didn't play it. Huh?
Yeah, I love that game. I think
It's
that's
a
a great
great game.
game.
Yeah,
I think that's a great game. Doesn't quite crack my top 10 of the year, but that's a great
yeah.
game. Now, if that's not on there, my assumption is that my other game would either be, and it's been my number three, would either be Splatoon 3
Mm,
via side order and playing multiplayer, Endless Ocean, which is probably around
yeah.
12 or 13 hours,
Hmm.
and then the other potential one, which I played a lot of, which I've played consistently and have over 40 hours in, is F-Zero 99, which I played
Oh
a lot of it in
sure.
this year.
Yeah, yeah.
One of those three would have made it. I think probably Splatoon 3. My next game, yours was Balatro. My next game at 23 all hours, my own, Echoes of Wisdom.
Sure.
Took me 23 hours to beat that game.
I have 18. That is my number three.
My number three was Monkey Ball Banana Rumble at 22 hours, which coincidentally I think is my rank placement in the worldwide leaderboard for the One Life Challenge in Monkey Ball Banana Rumble.
Hold on, wait. Is that everyone in the audience clapping as soon as they heard this
They
news?
should be. They should be.
Hold on, I'm hearing something from the future.
You know who will be clapping? Dan Parr. Also had
Oh,
Monkey Ball on his most played games list because he's based in Epic.
mm,
Um,
I don't really care about the gaming style thing. It says adventure. I don't give a fuck.
Mine's action. Yeah, we don't need to do the breakdown of that. That's fine. My most played month was November.
Mine was March, which is interesting. What did I play on my Switch in March?
Princess Peach Showtime.
That is true. And I guess I also played Paper Mario 64 that month, which is probably really where
You
most
probably
like.
played. Did you play Balatro that month?
No, I don't. I don't think I got that till the summer. Wait, that when did that game come out? It didn't come out in March.
I don't remember.
Who cares? But yeah, that's mildly interesting.
No, I remember. I saw. It doesn't matter. I saw some movie and I came home and you were playing Balatro. I was trying to use that to triangulate, but I don't remember what movie
No.
I saw. Um, I don't know. I don't really know why November is my most played month. I suspect it's because of playing all or two. I put a bunch of stuff on Game Boy, NSO. The
Mm-hmm.
first two Donkey Kong Land games I think were out in the month of November, and I played Metroid 2. I also played a fair bit of Mario and Luigi Brothership, and also John and I were playing uh, Jamboree that month.
Sure.
I'm just looking if any of my individual month stats are particularly interesting.
Oh,
Uh,
another thing for March is I actually played through all of the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC that month.
Great.
Coming right off the heels of Pokemon Day with Legends ZA being announced,
Yeah.
I decided to go back and play both Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra in Pokemon Violet, which was I mean that was, and wait no wait that's the Sword DLC. Sorry, that's the Sword and Shield DLC. I played
Yeah.
9 hours of that between both those DLCs. And then I played some Pokemon Violet. I did not play the DLC for that, but that was all in March for me.
My most played game in February was Penny's Big Breakaway, which is
Do you want
cool.
me to give you a fucking medal? What, like,
I'm just looking at other interesting ones. Star Wars Battlefront Collection Classic, my most played game in March.
I played Big Brain Academy over the course of 13 days this year. That's pretty crazy. That's not right.
I play.
That's not healthy.
So there's a small bit of fraud in my list, in my stats, because I played DMC 2 and DMC 3 on Switch as well this year, but I played them on my Japanese account.
Ah,
because I have the Japanese physical and only game one is on cartridge. So my most played game in April is DMC one, but my most played game in that month would actually be DMC three. But I don't have that data
Yeah.
because it's on a different account. Mario Thousand Year Door, not that interesting next month. Obviously, Monkey Ball
Monkey
Banana
Rumble.
Rumble. I replayed Bayonetta 1 when I went to
Oh,
France this year, and that's my most played game in August. What else? Obviously, Echoes of Wisdom was most played for a little while.
yeah.
Yep, and then November, Game Boy Online was my most played across some Donkey Kong Land games and Metroid 2.
Yeah.
And then my game of the year, I picked. Well, my game of the year overall is not on a Nintendo platform, but my game of the year on Nintendo was Monkey Ball Banana Rumble. It's seemingly forgotten I picked that, so I'm going to pick that again.
I don't think it stores that data. It's just trying to make you feel special when you click it.
Yeah.
But that wraps it up.
That's yeah.
That's all, folks.
Here's what the last thing I want to say in this section, because we've been very analytical and obviously we've shared a lot of our own opinion up to this point,
Yeah.
but I think it's just a quick temperature check before we do another timestamp.
Sure.
And we look ahead to the.
You stop talking about the timestamps.
It's just a fun notion to put timestamps in the video.
I do that sometimes, but I do that by watching the video and then writing on the time code.
Yeah, but what I was thinking about it is that it's so much easier if we're in recording if we have some sort of clock or watch or timer
Sure.
to generate the timestamps.
Sure.
We go. This is not important.
Yeah.
I had a good time with my Switch in 2024.
Sure.
This is a very subjective thing,
Yeah.
but between everything we talked about, I had a really good year with the system.
Yeah.
Again, it's a lesser year. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to pretend it isn't. But I think Switch is in such a great point where the new releases from Nintendo are not the be-all, end-all of the year with the system. Like it was in Wii U. In 2016,
Okay.
I didn't use my Wii U
Yeah.
except for when I briefly played Star Fox Zero
Yeah.
and when I briefly played Pokken Tournament and I briefly played Color Splash.
Yeah.
None of those are very good games. There was nothing else to do on Wii U.
Yeah.
Right? And so I had, again, a small number, Jamboree, Echoes of Wisdom, Endless Ocean, and Monkey Ball, if we'll count it. New releases that moved me this year that
I'd
I
count that
put
as a new
solid
release.
time into. That's a great point. But, there's a lot of perennial games in the system that are still going strong. F-Zero and Splatoon, and I'm still going back to other things. John and I were playing Pikmin 3 together.
Yeah.
I was dipping back into some other titles.
We
I
were
was
going back to
engaging
Pikmin 3. Actually, you and I played the bingo.
We were.
The
The challenge modes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't finish those.
We didn't.
We did one night.
We did. NSO still being updated.
Yeah.
Plenty of indies.
Yeah,
Obviously,
lots of NSO.
not all the indies are represented in my stats there, but Pennies for Breakaway, Neva, which I
Not
played
indie.
recently.
Not indie.
Tucker, I actually like that you're keeping me honest with this. But the larger
I
point
played
for me is I
Velastro
think
actually in indie, so I'm better.
yes. I think Nintendo, for maybe the first time ever in some ways, or the first time in a time frame relevant to this conversation, the Switch exists with or without Nintendo pumping out high quality games continuously.
Yeah.
And I think that's a cool position to be in, and so I'm not disappointed by this year.
No, neither am I. I can be critical of elements of it,
Yeah.
but to me, at the end of the day, what matters is number one, especially for Nintendo, a consistent release cadence, which they absolutely had. Even if not everything appeals to me, that doesn't bother me. I still got a solid number of games from them, and especially on the platform that I enjoyed quite a bit this year. And it's a low hum for any system, and it's certainly the it certainly is the year where I used my Switch the least. I was looking at some of these months, and it's like, you played 6 hours of your Switch that month. I'm like, really? That's like usually what I play in a day, like a system. Like, Jesus Christ. But I'm also okay with that because I know that we're building towards something that I will be much more invested in the ecosystem. And to the hardcore nerds that we are, this was a very interesting year to be engaged with the ecosystem. And we got a lot of games. They didn't all hit. But even to the point of something like Nintendo World Championships, that game, to me, I don't like that game. but it's a curiosity. I remember the
Yeah.
story behind how it was announced, how it was leaked, how it's an interesting realization of content, working with a large swath of different teams this year. It paints a very fascinating picture of a Nintendo that, outside of the three major releases at the end of the year, it's interesting that kind of in a 2018 style way, Mario Party Jamboree, Mario Luigi's Brothership, and Echoes of Wisdom all hit back to back to back, and those were
Yeah.
certainly the biggest releases of the year, notoriety wise. That this is a Nintendo that, to me, felt like they were scraping together a consistent lineup, because to them that was more important than having dry months. They were like, okay, we need a new game on the shelves that we are publishing. We're going to work with whatever
Yeah.
team. We're going to revitalize whatever IP. Frankly, to some of them, for me, quality be damned. Like, and not to say there was like really bad games this year, but it definitely was operating on a more mediocre hum, working with lower tier talent. But I
Yeah.
don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it introduced an interesting variety to the Switch's library, and it tapped into some different markets, and it kept the cadence wise, it kept the system very much alive in what seemed like it'll be its last year, which, again, to Nintendo's credit, that's the first time they've really done that. I mean,
Yeah.
in any given transitionary period from one system to the next, especially home console wise, usually the last year is two or three releases. And sometimes it's like a port and like one new game and then like a spin-off. But this year was full of games. A lot of ports,
Yeah.
a lot of remakes, collections, different sort of stuff, but it was a variety year, and I do enjoy that.
I do too. Um, we'll have to do this timestamp by the watching method because this is also our review of the year. So we fucked up the timestamps again.
Wait,
We could put a timestamp now for saying this timestamp can be called "We forgot we accidentally transitioned from what we played into our thoughts of the year overall." We did that on
yeah,
accident, so actually this timestamp's not useful. You could put that as a
yeah,
timestamp.
because this is the end of the video, right?
Well, I want to do two things
Oh, okay,
quickly.
okay. I need to stop hovering
A
over the stop recording button then.
I want to say one. I give this year an 80 out of 100.
Okay,
That's a B minus, and I think that that's fair.
sure.
I think that's solid. What would you give it, Teacher Tucker?
Mm, yeah, that sounds about right to me. Yeah, I'll
I
go
like
be honest
that.
as well. Yeah,
I set the trend. I set the trend. I like that.
I'm really like a lemming.
Last
I just follow
last
in
thing
the
I want to
footsteps.
do. 2025 is about to hit.
Yeah,
I'm very excited for 2025.
I
If you can
can't. I
believe it.
can't. Like, sometimes I think about the fact that next year's lineup looks so ungodly good, and we still don't know what Nintendo games are happening. And I'm just like, this is gonna. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I was thinking about how much money I spent on games this year. I'm like, that's not a good idea that I did that. And then I'm like, but I can't slow down now. Not with 2025 on the horizon.
No. And I mean, I'm very excited, obviously, principally for Switch 2
Yeah.
and for what will likely be 2 to 3 banner S tier
Yeah.
published games for
Oh,
Nintendo
yeah. Two of which we
at
already have
minimum.
confirmed.
Yeah, and well, that's what I was gonna say is that I'm excited for Switch 2. I'm excited for what its lineup is gonna be, but moreover, I'm actually very excited for Switch 1 next
Yeah.
year. I think that Switch
We
1 is
already
gonna
have
have a really
four
bright
games
year.
announced, and they're all interesting in their own ways.
I mean, obviously for me, Metroid Prime 4 is the game I've been waiting for forever from
Yeah.
Nintendo. And to have, to be on the precipice of it, that alone, even if there was no Switch
Yeah.
2 coming next year, I would be ecstatic for 2025 on the
Yeah.
basis of that one game.
Can
But
I
we don't
can I
even
throw out
have
a
that.
prediction?
Yeah,
You will like Legends ZA. You will enjoy that game.
yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I doubt it's gonna be any fucking Pokemon trading card game Pocket, but I'm sure it'll be okay.
True.
And Donkey Kong,
True.
he's returning.
In HD.